So, imagine 8 years ago, after Bale had scored to help Real win La Décima, someone told you that he would retire at 33 years of age, only half a season after leaving Real, as maybe their most hated player. Yeah, Bale's career was never too easy, and we're gonna have a look at that, but I don't think anyone could have predicted the level of pettiness and drama that we witnessed over the last few years. I mean, it reminded me more of a high school than a proper football club. Seeing how much Real has disrespected him, you would never guess this guy had been essential for 3 of their Champions League titles. It's unbelievable that after all of this, the main question the fans have about his career is whether he was a success or not. So today we're gonna go far back and have a look at his career, focusing on every bit of drama, every allegation, every twist and turn, and try our best to figure out who was at fault after all. So, to start it all off, there was nothing negative about his upbringing. I guess maybe the fact he was born in Wales could lead a few Englishmen to feel a bit envious, since not only was he the most naturally talented British player of the 21st century, but he was also never too kind when talking about England. Reportedly even threatening to sack his agent when he proposed the idea of him playing for them instead of Wales, and making a few comments here and there that didn't exactly sit well with the English crowds. But yeah, besides that, nothing much. He was just kind of a sports prodigy. By the age of 14, he could run the 100 meters in 11.4 seconds, almost a national record, and eventually watching him play in a 6-a-side tournament was enough for Southampton to snatch him up and spend 7 years quite literally trying to hide him from the public to make sure he would at least play 1 season for them before the inevitable happened and a bigger team snatched him up. Regardless, by 16 he was so good that they had forbidden him from playing up front in school tournaments, as it was just not fair for the other boys. And with the first few big clubs surrounding him like sharks, Southampton caved in and gave him his debut. Over the 43 matches that followed, Bale elevated himself to the level of best young player of the season, carrying Southampton to the promotion playoffs and becoming known as one of the fastest, most feared, lethal players in England, all while playing as left back. And in the blink of an eye, he was already moving to Tottenham, and here's where we get our first few bits of drama. After just 3 months, despite his incredible start, Bale got injured and didn't play again for the rest of the season. Back then, this could seem like bad luck, but in reality, it was just the start of a never-ending battle with injuries that would leave Bale on the sidelines for 1,092 days throughout the rest of his career. In fact, right from the beginning, those injuries put his career at stake, as the British media began saying Bale was a cursed player, running headlines saying that Tottenham had labelled him as a flop and were considering selling him already to Birmingham for just £3 million. Can you imagine? Sure, in his second season he didn't necessarily impress as much as he could, and he did start his third season with an injury that left him out for nearly 2 full months once again, which in return allowed Soe Koto to completely take over his place on the team, and if it hadn't been for a bit of irony with Soe Koto getting injured as well, allowing Bale to take back his spot, maybe things could have gotten really bad really fast. But still, I cannot imagine an alternate universe where selling Bale for £3 million could ever be a good decision. After all, from there on out, Bale made the most of every opportunity he got, and just 2 months later he was the Premier League Player of the Month. By the end of the season, he had taken Tottenham to their first Champions League since 1962, and once there he would destroy Inter Milan despite his teammates' efforts to ruin it all, scoring a hat-trick and getting 2 assists to get Tottenham to the top of their group, and introducing himself to the world as the next all-time great. And even though at this point the injuries came back and he had his first taste of media persecution as the narrative that he was a big diver and a cheat began taking over social media, he still broke through and won the PFA Player of the Year, going on a steady rise that prompted his transformation into a winger, changing his career forever, turning him into a completely different beast who seemed to either score or assist every match, getting on average a goal contribution every 105 minutes throughout the entire season. Still, Tottenham could barely make the top 4. In the Europa League they were out the moment he got injured, and in the FA Cup, despite him scoring or assisting every single one of their goals, they still went out against Leeds. Yeah, it was frustrating to say the least, but still nothing could stop Bale from being the Player of the Year once again, or even better, from looking for a new club. which obviously sparked some drama the moment Real Madrid came to the rescue. First came the claims that he was ungrateful and should stay at Tottenham, the club who supposedly gave him a career like a player of his level wouldn't have made it anywhere else. And then, as it was claimed Real had offered around 65 million, the media found it suitable to question if he was worth such an amount. Which became a lot worse when in fact, he ended up being the first ever player to break the 100 million mark, starting by far the most controversial chapter of his career. Right from the get-go, there was a bunch of drama because Real Madrid insisted on reporting the value of his transfer as lower than 100 million, even though it was repeatedly proven to be set at exactly 100.8 million. Maybe they were trying to take the weight of being the first player to hit such a mark off his shoulders, but instead they only attracted more attention towards him, with the media doubling and tripling down on the claims that he was quite simply not worth the money, which culminated in Cristiano Ronaldo himself feeling the need to come out and defend his teammate. Just unbelievable. While all of this was going on, Martin, his girlfriend's father, decided to somehow escalate the drama even more, starring in a huge scandal, being caught running a telemarketing scam in which he sold the victims low-value stocks for massively inflated prices, meaning he was now facing 40 charges of wire fraud and money laundering, which translated into the possibility of him being extradited to the USA and facing up to 30 years in prison. If dealing with the fact that this was all happening was already hard, it became worse when the scandal gathered a lot of traction in Spain and the UK, prompting people to attack the house of Bale's girlfriend's parents, even burning their car, before attempting to do the same to other relatives, forcing Bale to hire extra security for his new home in Madrid. Even on the pitch, things didn't seem to calm down much, as Bale was inevitably hit with a number of muscular problems that only allowed him to play the full 90 in 7 occasions over the first half of the season. Still, throughout that period, he managed to pull some good numbers, and it was only afterwards, following a slight dip in form from January to March, that the media began slamming him like never before, going as far as claiming that Bale doesn't know how to play football, only how to run. So now you ask, how bad were his numbers during that period? Well, 21 matches, in which he was only afforded the 90 minutes 12 times, and still pulled off 5 goals and 9 assists. Run the math, and that's a contribution every 111 minutes. Only in Madrid would a player like that have to deal with this. Regardless, by the end of the season, Bale had pulled off 41 goals and assists and scored one of the most iconic goals in the Copa del Rey's history to give Real the win over Barcelona with 5 minutes to go, winning them their first trophy in 2 seasons. Then, in the Champions League final, Bale's value gets repeatedly put into question as he had apparently missed too many chances by full time, only for him to go and score the goal that would put Madrid in front once more. It's almost like his job was to put people in their place. However, the following season, the opposite happened. Bale barely missed any matches through injury, but yet somehow his numbers dropped to some all-time lows, and after a defeat in El Clasico following 2 months where he only scored in a single match, things got wild, with the fans literally trying to stop his car as he left training the next day and then proceeding to punch it and kick it when he refused to stop. But at least, then it was just 2 random fanatics. After Bale put on a disappointing performance as Juventus knocked Real out of the Champions League, missing a huge chance midway through the match, finishing the knockout stage without a single goal or assist, the entire stadium was booing him. A year after securing La Decima, he was back to square one, but still, he insisted in an interview. There have been some ups and downs, but I personally feel like I have played well. This disappointing ending to the season led to Ancelotti being replaced with Benitez. Bale liked him very much, but the other players and fans did not share this feeling, and by January, it was gone, and in came Zidane. Bale was left furious at this, feeling that Benitez had been sacked only because the other players had conspired against him, as after all, he had only lost 3 out of 25 games while in charge of Real Madrid. These feelings ended up affecting Bale's performances, going from an incredible period of 23 goal contributions up till January to then getting only 8 over the rest of the season, further clashing with Zidane, who already wasn't too fond of Bale's protective attitude towards Benitez by going out to play golf the day after getting injured in a league match, when his recovery was fundamental for Real, who would be facing Man City in the Champions League just 9 days later. In fact, he almost went another season without leaving his mark in the Champions League knockouts, but in proper Bale fashion, he showed up in the final, assisting Real's only goal and converting his penalty in the shootout as Real won their 11th Champions League. But then, after historically taking Wales to a Euro semi-final in their first ever time competing in the tournament, even scoring in every group stage match to get them to top their group ahead of England, Bale went into maybe the worst season of his career. After playing relatively well all the way up till November, Bale got repeatedly injured, having missed 29 matches by the time the season was over. This by itself would already have been awful, but it was actually 10 times worse, considering he had repeatedly insisted that he was okay, convincing Zidane to play him as he was thinking he was about to lose his place on the team to starboy Marco Asensio, only to severely aggravate his injury, eventually putting him in risk for the Champions League final, which greatly upset Zidane, who felt that he had been betrayed and lied to, causing their relationship to get more sour than ever, ultimately leading Bale to be turned into a mere rotation player by the time the next season had started, barely ever getting to play the full 90 and frequently getting used in a more central position to accommodate for players like Isco and Asensio, which greatly bruised his ego. By May of the next year, despite pulling off some good numbers, Bale was really lacking in the iconic performance department, with his most memorable moment coming when the cameras captured him yawning on the bench while Real Madrid faced PSG in the UCL last 16, then making no efforts at all to get himself ready to come on the pitch, even ignoring Sergio Ramos at the end of the match, refusing to salute the fans and heading straight into the locker room. Bale mania was dying down for good, and maybe he knew that because it was at that very moment that he took everything to a whole new level. In the very next match against Barcelona, he scored to fix the result at a draw, then pulled off 3 goals in the last 2 league matches of the season, and then as Ronaldo went from pulling off the greatest Champions League run of all time to being in doubt for the final, Bale closed out the season by coming into the match with only 30 minutes on the clock to break the tie with 2 of the greatest goals ever scored in a UCL final. It was easily the most iconic performance of his career and one of the most iconic in the history of football. It was the most Bale thing ever, and once again the fans were left completely floored by his ability to overcome bad moments. Then, with Ronaldo announcing his departure from the team following the match, you would expect Bale to finally be given a proper chance to prove his worth, especially after Zidane reportedly ended up announcing his departure, upset that Florentino had not only allowed Ronaldo to leave, but also failed to secure the sale of Bale, who Zidane wanted out of the club. Still, going through 5 injuries that season and being stuck in a managerial mess with new coach Lopetegui being sacked after just 2 months and Zidane eventually coming back to the club by March, even Lucas Vázquez would be afforded more minutes than Bale, even though he was literally delivering a goal every 120 minutes on the pitch. At this point, criticism began getting more personal, with one pundit famously saying, if someone comes along with an offer for him, accept it and say thanks, because gracias he wouldn't understand, criticizing the fact that Bale didn't speak Spanish after 6 years in the country. In reality, Bale should have left, but he stayed and barely got any minutes from there on out, leading his market value to drop 60% in the space of a year, leading the drama to become completely uncontrollable, with Bale becoming more and more vocal about it, almost mocking the club, first being seen laughing on the bench as Real got destroyed 7-3 by rivals Atletico, then not inviting a single one of his teammates to his wedding and saying that as long as he got paid, he did not mind staying on the bench. Knowing damn well Real weren't willing to spend the money needed to terminate his massive contract, prompting Zidane to say that it would be for the best if Bale left the club as soon as possible. But that only led Bale to take the teasing to a whole new level, rejecting a £1 million a week contract in China and then displaying a flag while playing for the national team that read Wales, Golf, Madrid, in that order. The guy deserved a better ending than that, but to be honest, it's not like he did much to help himself. Eventually, that act became the straw that broke the camel's back. The fans were now completely enraged, and so Bale and the board created a sort of escape plan that took him back to Tottenham on a 1-season loan deal. He struggled a lot at first, either injured or benched every time, but then he hit a period of amazing form with 12 goals and 3 assists in 18 matches, though he hadn't gotten to play a full match a single time over that period, meaning he had a goal or assist every 57 minutes. Regardless, with his market value set at a measly 10 million and Bale well into his 30s, Real finally gave up on him, allowing him to move to LAFC in the MLS on a free transfer, where he would strangely agree to a shocking 95% cut that saw him earn just 30k a week 1 year after being offered 1 million. Regardless, he did truly seem to enjoy his time there, putting on one last show this season, coming on in extra time in the final of the MLS to score and hand his club the title in a way only Bale could, all while qualifying Wales for their first World Cup in 64 years, scoring their only goal to secure a single point against the United States, getting to smile on the pitch for one last time before announcing his retirement and leaving us forever with the question, was Bale a success or a failure? The magic thing is we'll never know.